Honourable Speaker, thank you for the opportunity. First of all, I want to join colleagues who have spoken before me to recognize the presence of the Cabinet, led by Her Excellency, the Vice President, and all the ministers here in presence. Honourable Speaker, this has been a constitutional demand on His Excellency the President, and it has been also a rule within our standing orders that the President must address the nation through the Parliament. The exercise has been done. The only correction that I want to propose to the executive, our standing order is requesting the President to address the nation through this Parliament during the first quarter of the year. To be very specific, to attend the first sitting of the Parliament. And that's for many, many reasons. Because through this exercise, the President will help us to know the condition of the country through various sectors, as is highlighted in the speech. How administration is taking place, what are the successes as of now, and what are the challenges, and to give us an account of the previous year, so that we will be able to gauge, to know where we are and where we are heading to. But if it happened at this particular moment, the challenge that we are facing, if you give now us the account of last year, the previous year, that's 2019, we are almost at 3/4 of the year. So you are going to combine with the 2 quarters of the year to be able to know exactly the direction that we have taken and how far are we on the journey. So if it could be possible for the executive to comply with this provision or clause of the standing order, it will help the government, it will help the executive, it will also help the legislature. Because we are working in cooperation, one may not go without the other, but together we'll be able to go. Honourable Speaker, Honourable Member for Woolly West requested for a correction, and I think I have to request for more corrections on that line. If you turn the page, the document to page 9, what is written in letters and what is written in figure is not telling the same thing. $2,300,000,000,000, but in figure we read $2,300,000,000. So which one might be the correct one? And if you go on page 3, still clarification, on page 43, I think the same thing also reflected. Sorry, Honourable Speaker. 48, yes. It's 48. 48, where you have you miss 48. Mm-hmm, 2020. All right, Honorable Speaker, I'm sorry. My notes are not with me here. But anyway, I have discovered such lacunes being repeated frequently in the documents. So if the executive can pay attention to such, because it is important, the president is reading the nation and is reading for the nation. So therefore, anything that comes from the president's statement, it is not an ordinary statement. So informations need to be vetted before the president gets access to those informations. That's the essence of my intervention in that domain. Honorable Speaker, if I may take you to page 8, the president has tried to put us in the frame. He has come to answer to constitutional demand, but also he has put us in the context. What will be the direction or the direction of his statement? And if you allow me to read 12, as a result, I will focus on the pandemic, hopeful that many of my government's infrastructural, legal, constitutional, and other development successes have been reported widely on the media and other forms of news outlets. So in essence, His Excellency the President is telling us, you may expect many out of this nation address. But in respect to the situation that we are living now, I'm going to focus more on activities related, COVID-19 related programs, activities, and so on. So I think from this close of the speech of the President, we are now in context, and we know how you're going to scrutinize this document. That's the essence. You may expect more, I know,
businesses in bankruptcy,
but depending to the condition, to the health situation, this is how I'm going to address you. So that means if anything is not in relation to these, might not be essence as of now, but it doesn't mean that it's not important. That's my understanding.
Because by the beginning of the 21st
Honorable
century,
Speaker,
we humans have become the factor that
going
exercises
to
the biggest impact
page
on
9.
changes to the planet. We have to brace ourselves.
Sorry, page
Not radically
14.
change our lifestyle. This crisis
Sorry, page
will be
12.
followed by other
Interior.
which may be even more serious than COVID.
In the
Therefore, today,
speech of the President, with your permission,
crisis, and are
close one,
ready to
Madam
do something
Speaker, in collaboration with other
that
services,
there is a danger looming.
the Gambia Police Force has increased the engagement in community and border patrols. However,
Today,
border enforcement activities
to defend
on
ourselves,
irregular migrants
there is no
and
drug, no vaccine.
perpetrators
There are other
of
areas of life as well.
transitional organized crimes such as trafficking and smuggling have been constrained due
While the
to
water crisis,
advance of COVID-19. Honorable Speaker, what I would like to propose to the executive, it is important to pay more attention on community policing policy. I give it a try in my community, within my constituency, Those who knows Basse, especially Sabi, you know that it's very open. There are so many porous borders to enter in the Gambia through Sabi without passing through the official borders. But if you engage the community members, you give them that necessary information that you are protecting yourself, not only your country, because your community is the first point of call. Organize yourself. Manage these borders. It will help the government. And exactly that's what we have done in collaboration with the Office of the Commissioner, the Regional Commissioner of Police at Basse. And as I'm talking to you, those borders, or porous borders, to enter in the Gambia through Sabi, through Sare Pirasu, through Tuwa Tafsir, through Sare Musa, are now being under control by the youths of those communities. So if it happened in Sabi, it succeeded. I think if the government cooperate more with the community members, the same thing can be replicated in other regions, especially those who are at the border. The police force alone cannot do it all because we know the constraints. Material constraints is there, mobility constraints is there. Even if they want to render the services, the tools to do so are not sufficient. So therefore, what should be the duty of the citizens now? That's where civic education has to play. For that everybody will know it's true. You have a right to claim, but you have also a responsibility to offer. Honorable Speaker, going on page 14, defense. I would like to inform the executive. I was expecting that from the statement of His Excellency, but hence not there. It's now my duty to inform you that the army camp in Basse, at the point in time, they are seriously handicapped of mobility. The reason why? The two pickups they had, they allocated one to Sambuya camp for a reason. I don't want to go into detail. And the other pickup that they had is the pickup that we are using for night patrols and to visit other borders. And if the need arises, to go and answer. Is that pickup that was involved in road accidents, leading to the loss of a life of one Malik Manga. May Allah be pleased with him. So that being the case, at the point in time, to manage security in Basse today, the will is there, the personnel are there, but the mobility is a challenge. If I may take you to page 17, under the Office of the Vice President, clause 9, with your permission, Madam Speaker, as regard to rainy season, the National Disaster Management Agency has engaged stakeholders and UN partners to respond to any disaster. The initiative is very noble. We appreciate it. But we call your attention as of now that the preliminary result has shown that so far URR has recorded the highest number of disaster victims. And previously what used to happen, we don't want, if response has to come, it should commensurate to the damage volume. And most likely what we do observe, that's not the scenario. The statistics, the way they were given, if responses are coming, it should commensurate to the statistics. This is what I want to call the attention of the executive on. If you go on page 30, Madam Speaker, with your permission, agriculture. And with your permission, I want to read clause 1. The Ministry of Agriculture is one of the most important sectors in the country, as many Gambians are either occupational farmers or depends on farming for substances. The increased production, therefore, the Ministry of Agriculture has been actively in policy development and program implementation. Two issues are here. I can't understand. It could be, I'm a layman in this domain. Agriculture is one of the most important, underline that word, one of the most important sectors as far as the economy of this country is concerned. And we used to hear that agriculture is the backbone of the economy of this country. But how do we respond to that? How do we prepare morals, minds of Gambian people to that? And the best institution that we have to make our human capital is education. Go to education, go to the curriculum. You will see agricultural subject. One, it is not a core subject. It is an optional subject. The number of periods accorded to teach agricultural lessons is just 3 periods of 35 minutes. I stand to be corrected, teachers. And you are telling the citizens of that country that this sector is one of the most important sectors. The moment you should put or inculcate that in their mind to believe in it, it differs. 3 periods of 35 minutes per week. And not obligatory subject, but optional. Optional in the sense that you can read agriculture from grade 7 to grade 8. From grade 8, you can drop it. So therefore, the executive, I don't know how the Minister of Agriculture and the Minister of Education can cooperate in that domain to review the curriculum. If we say it is important, it should be important in the real sense of the word. And the environment should show that it is important. I don't know how that could be done, but anyway, that is my proposal to the executive. And again, the second sentence, to increase production, therefore the Ministry of Agriculture has been active in policy development and program implementation. Policy development. If you want somebody to take ownership of any program, of any policy, to participate in that policy, during the policy formulation, engage the person. Who are formulating the policies? Where are the farmers? Are you formulating these policies for who? If you are formulating these policies for the farmers will be at the center of the discussion. So that whatever has been planned for them or programmed for them, they will know that I have to do this for it to become a reality. The benefit will be you'll have community participation, but again, you'll have community ownership because they know that this belongs to them, it's theirs. But if they are not engaged in policy formulation, at the end of the day, do not be active. And let's remember that we said this is one of the most important sectors of the country. How value are we attaching to this sector for people to understand and believe in it, that it is an important sector? That's the question. And that's my suggestion to the executive. Again, close to, with your permission, Madam Speaker, to cite examples, it has developed a national agricultural extension policy to promote production and value addition, value chain development, strengthening the agricultural extension system, and building partnerships. Here, what I want to propose to you, and I have been a living example of that program. You see, let's value adult and non-formal education units. It could be very useful to this sector, agriculture. The farmers, they know. They are not instructed, but they know. And the purposes of such program will be now to reorient them, to instruct them, to guide them, to help them to understand, to put them in a cadre, for them to be responsible of their own affair. This is what's happening in Senegal. What do you call encadreurs, les encadreurs? Doyen, if you can help me. Les encadreurs. It used to come from the Ministry of Agriculture, but now it's coming from the farming communities, the extension workers. Somebody could be trained within 3 months in his or her own language and to become better officer in that domain than somebody who attended university for that purpose. I am proposing it to you, executive. If you can give it a try. I am here, the member for Wulivesi is here. It's our domain. And we want to value it. And the only thing that we can value it, if it is now functional, learn today, go and help yourself with it tomorrow. Honorable Minister, Honorable Speaker, I now move to page 38, with your permission. Youths and sports. This area is a bit complex because it affects the youths, it affects the women, it affects also I think transport sectors. Many efforts have been done to help the youth, the young people in this country. We are very, very grateful to that, executive. all the training that have been done, all the interventions, all the money that have been invested to answer to the needs of the young people in this country is highly commended from my side. We thank you for that. There is a particular issue now in Basse. The users of motorbikes for taxi. That's what young people want to invest in. I can tell you more than 60% of the young people in Basse, they want to invest in that business. Because it's so lucrative to them. With $35,000, you are able to have a motorbike. You can even have it on rent and pay it on installment. But the problem here, the police are saying using motorbike as a taxi is not within the traffic laws. So that affects the Minister of Interior. Because the motorbike lancing, the owner is not lancing, the motorbike is lancing to carry only one person. That's the rider. Then it's for private purpose. And if you go to the insurance sites, the motorbike rider is only his own life that is insured, not the life of another person. So now if you want to use this motorbike for taxi, you can see the challenge now. Because the police people will tell them, it is not within our traffic laws. It's true. Because the machine is being lancing to carry only one person. You cannot carry more than one person. Only one person's life has been insured. So the second person who's behind you, his life is not insured. You cannot take the risk. So it will make the dialogue very difficult between the youth sector and the police forces. And that's what is happening in Basse. I don't know what the government can do in order to resolve this situation. Though we have seen motorbike riders, yes, some of them do default. They go to neighboring countries and bring strangers through porous borders, which is also a challenge. We know that. But I think if a proper mechanism is put in place, this business could be respected. It could be beneficiary to the society. It could also help the police in their maintenance, peace and stability in the country. And above all, when I did my consultation, when I went to the market women, they told me this has more social benefits, especially for us, the market women, putting into consideration the street conditions in Basse. Even if you can afford the cost of a taxi, the taxi cannot go at certain places. The only means of transport you can use is the motorbike. And if you come to the cost worthiness, it is more affordable to have a taxi to take you home, a motor taxi to take you home than a vehicle taxi. If the vehicle taxi is asking you $100, motorbike can take you with $25. So you can see the social dimension. So this issue should be given a particular attention from the authority. Executive, you are before us I'm giving you these submissions for your perusal. Honorable Speaker, let's go to 42.
Honorable, I just want you to guide me in terms of you dealt extensively about the issue of motor bicycles. Am I right? Yes, I just want you to guide me. Where can I find the link in the presidential address touching, no matter how broad, on the issue of motor bicycles so that I can correct my records? Because I think we should all try to avoid issues that we will deal with during adjournment debate. I know we have only 15 minutes, but let's try to just follow the rules. Let's restrict our interventions, our discussions on the content of the address. The other issues, they are at liberty to touch anything during the course of the adjournment debate. So let's just be careful of that. Thank you.
Madam Speaker, thank you very much. I respect your view, Mr. Presiding. Madam Speaker, we are talking here about opportunities that could be created for the young people to be employed, self-employed. And that has been dealt by the President. How young people can be self-employed.
I asked that I want you to guide me.
You want me to
So you can guide me and I will see it.
Thank you. Get prepared now. I will start by clause 5 on page 38. The National Youth Service Scheme was able to recruit 602 youths. All of them had been placed for skills acquisition in various areas. Most of them were either employed or are self-employed. Another 150 youths are now on placement at various skill centers or other institutions. The objective here is to create employment for the young people or to orient them to be self-employed. I am saying in addition to that, this also is an opportunity which could be considered by the executives so that if it is properly guided, monitored, it could be a source of employment for the young people in my region at Pasay. Madam Speaker. Anyway, thank you very much. I respect your view.
Yes, I am not convinced.
During the adjournment debate, I will talk more on this. I will stop at this. Now, Madam Speaker, I'm calling your attention on page 42. Arts and culture, tourism. Many things has been said on arts. Many things has been said on tourism. But few or even less or even no has been said on culture. Madam Speaker, if you could permit me, I want to call the attention of the executive on the importance of culture for conflict management. It can promote social cohesion. It can give lessons for those who wish to improve the praxis of conflict resolution. I went even to think of how best we can make use of this job kinship, these joking relations. In Mandinka we call Sanawiya. can pay dividend as far as maintenance of peace is concerned in the country, as far as conflict management is concerned. Could the executive think of having a day called Sanawiya Day for the Gambia, where the Jarankas and the Nyominkas will meet and discuss about these important geographic relations, where the Badibunkas and the Sarawiles will meet and sit, discuss on this issue? Because of recent, I was involved in a conflict resolution in Sandu. If you permit me, Madam Speaker, to go on that. And I use cultural frame to resolve that conflict. One of the most tension conflict that have ever happened in URR at Dasilame, between a Fula and one family, Jawara. And the Honorable Minister for Local Government knows what I'm talking about. Culturally, I am a Granke. The relationship between Granke and Fula, and the relationship between Granke and Jawara, that's what I have used, a conflict that was in court for almost 1 year. Within 30 minutes, I was able to resolve that conflict, and they shake each other's hand, and they withdraw that matter from the courts. Is that not liable? So our cultures, let us value them. They can help us. Madam Speaker, education, and that's like my last intervention. You see, I had a problem and I'm still having that problem. If you look at higher education, clause 1, His Excellency, the President said, and I quote, with your permission, the tertiary and the higher education sector is on page 43. The tertiary and the higher education sector is focused on its mandate of human capital development. And if it's a tertiary education here, it's above grade 12. GTTI, Gambia College, MDI, RDI. But if you look at the case of Gambia College, what has been confusion here, or more complex, the Gambia College produces human capital for MOPSI. But it is under the purview of MOHAS. And this creates a lot of challenge. Gambia College producing teachers. Teachers are the human capital of Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education. And the Gambia College is under the purview of Ministry of Higher Education, Research, Technique, etc. And the problem that they are facing, the need for Gambia College today is less than, or is even more than the income that goes to Gambia College. That's why at Gambia College, to have professional teachers, good lecturers on pensionable scheme is practically impossible now. Even to have teachers on contract, lecturers I mean. And the URR, so Gambia College URR campus, that's what they are facing now. I wonder whether that college will be reopened this year, this academic year, because of lack of human capital. And this is the problem. So executive, that's an information. I don't know how best we can do together in order to analyze this situation. But if the trend continues as it is, I'm not seeing the future brighter. As one government, we are all partners. It's only through cooperation and collaboration that we can move this country forward. If you are ready for the cooperation, we are ready for the cooperation. We've seen the will, we've seen the courage that you are doing. But life is all about challenges. But challenges also should not stop you to go forward. So with these few remarks, Madam Speaker, I thank you and beg to resume my seat.
Honorable, thank you. May I take Honorable Member for Birkama North? Birkama North.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I want to take this opportunity